Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum. My name is Citizen Strife, and this week's anime review is Speedgrapher. So, Speedgrapher is an interesting take. The best way I would describe it would be kind of halfway crime drama, fugitive drama, and then sort of like a seedy, X-Men-y, super-powered, weird thing, just through a filter of filth. And I don't mean dirty, I mean the seedy crime drama-esque stuff. You know, guns, mafia or hitmen or high-powered stuff, you know, nightclubs, all that seedy junk. That would be the best way I would describe it. And I enjoy it to a point, and I know I rewatched it a couple of times, most recently about 3 to 6 months ago, and it still holds up okay. And if you have a tolerance for those types of shows, or if you're into that sort of thing, this is certainly for you. The closest I would approximate it would be something like a seedier version of Darker Than Black. I haven't reviewed that one just because I haven't seen it in like 15 years, mostly because I don't have access to that show. It's one of those ones that's in like purgatory without paying a hefty price for it. But Darker Than Black, their idea was everybody has a superpower, but their issue comes from having to pay it by doing a certain like verbal tick or some sort of mental game or something. They have to take a price. Maybe they smoke, maybe they drink, maybe they, whatever. Speedgrapher goes in a different route. It goes a little bit seedier. The way I would describe it is Darker Than Black's more sci-fi. This is more just a little more just crime filled and kind of gross at times. Not to say it isn't good, it's just a different tone of how they present the material. But you can definitely tell that like they take some cues from superheroes and some other stuff. Like one of the main villains is essentially like Emma Frost, I think. Or I want to say it's Emma Frost, the lady who can turn herself into diamonds or something like that. I don't even know if that's what Emma would do. But she would definitely look like that. Or like the main character's haircut in one episode would totally look like Logan's haircut, you know, Wolverine's haircut, right? So they don't make overt homages, but a lot of the powers and a lot of the other stuff, like Mr. Fantastic, like his power set is used in here. A villain becomes a Stretch Armstrong kind of guy, but he's a weird kind of dude, you know. But then you have your usual slate of things, but everything's through a filter of, let's see what kind of weird shit we can do with this. We can give people powers, but then we're going to do something kind of dark and a bit depraved with it, because that's the tone. The tone is, let's see what we can do with this kind of material. And the plot is pretty simple. A photographer named Tatsumi Saiga, voiced by Christopher Sabat, he does just journalism and whatnot. He's kind of a famous or somewhat famous photographer, and he's tasked with coming up with this, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. I forget how his superiors go about it. Either he's supposed to look for it, or he's tipped off about it and they tell him probably not a great idea, but if you want to break it open, you can break it open, because that's what journalists do. They try to do that shit. They try to uncover things. And Saiga is a bit, world-weary, doesn't really give too much a shit, but is still kind of driven by finding, like, the perfect photography and learning things and, seeing the world as it was, because, again, he was affected by war. I forget if it was specifically something like Vietnam or some other place that he was at, but it was just some war-torn country. It could have actually probably, given the time frame, I want to say maybe Gulf War, but I don't know. But some war in some country, somewhere, he was involved as a war photographer and saw armies, other things going on, and took us picture that they reference quite a bit of times throughout the show. And again, it kind of informs his personality. So he goes into this place. I believe they call it the Roppongi Club. Hopefully I'm right on that. And it's what you would expect a seedy nightclub of socialites to gather at. Just politicians, celebrities, high-end, people with lots and lots and lots of money, with lots and lots of depraved ideas going to and being catered to. He ends up getting found out because, of course, he does. But as he's being wheeled off to probably being executed, he meets someone named Kagura Tanozu, and she's voiced by Monica Rial. She tries to get him out of the situation, but before she does that, and this is where it gets really kind of awkward and disturbing, is she kisses him, and something in her, how would I describe it, bodily fluids, her saliva basically, yeah, it's as weird as you sound, forces Saiga to now change into what's known as a euphoric. So the way that the show describes it is that she is infected by some sort of virus that is only going to manifest for a short time. If she's taken away, the virus doesn't manifest. So the people in charge of her life have basically turned her into an invalid or malnourished, and have basically tried to ensure that only people that they want turn into euphorics. So it's very, very subdued and very, very hush-hush and shit. She doesn't know why it exists. But it is affecting her body, and it's, affecting everyone else that she deals with. So this virus has been a thing, and the one who's leading it is Choji Suitengu. It is voiced by Chris Ayres. And his whole thing is he leads the club, he sees everything around it, and he's going to change, and he's going to force things to happen. His story arc is set in mystery for a while, but his is tied to Kagura the entire time. Because Kagura's mother is like the owner of the biggest company in this world, basically this Japan world, for whatever city they're in or whatever, country they're in at the time. She's basically just, I own everything, I have all the power, he's part of that organization. You kind of get the picture. So Saiga tries to take her away, but is getting chased down, and it becomes a cat and mouse game over and over between Suitengu and his goons, who, you see like these three goons all the time in cars, kind of wandering around trying to find them, and Suitengu in the background just doing stuff, just waiting for results. But after a while, he ends up getting involved himself, and his power set is interesting, where he can use blood. And I forget if this was one of the first times I saw it. I know, I've seen it in Dead Man Wonderland. I've seen it recently in Frieren. I know I've seen it elsewhere. This was one of those early times where I used to see blood as a thing people would start using, because it is a trope to use it as a weapon, but it is still 2002 to 2005 or sometime early 2000s, mid 2000s, right? So it's still early enough that I'm like, okay, that's kind of strange. It's what the fuck, So he has his own powers too. So Saiga's power set, and while he's on the run with Kagura, he can turn his giant camera that he's using via an eye. He uses his eye, he looks at the camera, he turns on his euphoric power, and he can explode whatever sees through his camera. Just flat out, boom. He can make it a small explosion, he can make it a large explosion, he even kind of learns how to, defeat certain enemies with, unique filters and other things that he does. They don't obsess over that skill. It's more about the cat and mouse game, because he's a lot smarter and street smart than he looks, because he's a journalist and, lives that kind of lifestyle and tries to deal with the situation and try to keep Kagura safe, because they're trying to keep her imprisoned. They want that virus or whatever to stay in tow. He's trying to escape so that she can, just live a normal fucking life, right? So it's a 20 episodes, 24 episodes of this, and you start learning what Sweet Tengu's real goal is. You start seeing these allusions to people being rich and in power, and it's corrupting society and stuff like that. It's very surface level stuff. It's a lot of superpower stuff, all told. Is it the best story? Not really, but there is some cool fight scenes and cool power sets, and if you're into the sort of feel of the crime drama vibe, you're gonna like. I think that's good, and I've always kind of remembered it for that reason. It doesn't always age well, stuff like that, but the older I get, the more I tend to appreciate stuff of that nature. The other thing, a couple of other things about Speed Grapher, just some small minor things. Oh yeah, those goons I told you about, Sweet Tengu's goons. One of them, in the English version, he is voiced by Greg Ayres. And I found it interesting that it was like Chris and Greg voiced people on the same side. I was just thought that was kind of funny. But I remember asking Greg, who did the grunt character, the henchman character, because his design is like, he's got this, like, how ninjas would have the face shield. Well, this guy has a nose shield, basically, or an eye patch. Think of it like a nose patch, so a patch over his nose instead. Well, the character in question either had his nose bitten off, or ripped off, or genetically modified, or something like that, and you see these like weird things where he's able to sense. Maybe he's a euphoric too, and he's able to sniff out scents and, track people like a dog or some other animal would be. And I had to ask Greg, that question. And I think he said something like, because sometimes you'll have to be in a studio and you'll change your voice to do something, do something like this with your nose. I think what he said was it wasn't just this, closing your nose. But I think he pulled back his nose with a string or something, like in the studio. He like pulled something back with a towel or a string or something. I forget. It's been a while since I asked him. But he said he would wear that because in the show, his voice, and I wonder if the Japanese actor did this first, how they did it, I don't know. But his voice would be kind of like half raspy, half, nasal because of that. To give that effect, because again, this guy's wearing this patched nose, basically. So they create this weird effect, and it's not like the most unnerving thing, but I thought that was kind of just an interesting, cool thing, because how do you do that and still sound like you, because you want to sound or act like you're supposed to. And if you're having this crazy superpower with your nose, and it's on your nose, and you're just kind of like holding your head, because it's holding your head back, basically. You kind of have to mimic that effect to an extent. And the other thing that Speed Grapher, I believe this one is the more well-known one, is the intro sequence. So the intro sequence is a little seedy and all that fun crime drama stuff, introducing the characters, and anime OPs and EDs, the opening and ending sequences are very well known. And this one actually, I believe it was the Japanese version, was Duran Duran. I believe the song Photograph, and you can find it on YouTube. And I've listened to it, but I'm so used to the instrumental song that they use that's now on the Crunchyroll or the Funimation, whichever one you were using at the time. Now it's Crunchyroll. They changed it obviously because of usage rights, but you can find both versions on it. So if you like Duran Duran, I don't know if it fits, honestly, just because I'm so used, and I'm not saying the instrumental version is all that exciting, because it really kind of just reuses, it kind of cycles through the same verse chorus thing a couple of times, but it just sounds like it fits a little bit more. The Photograph, Duran Duran is more exciting. I think it opens better, but I think by and large, I don't know if it fits the visuals of the opening as well. So try to look at both and see what you'd like. Obviously, I think people would prefer the Duran Duran because it's a Duran Duran thing. It would make more sense. It would be more interesting and memorable. But I found, Shutter Speed to be all right. It's just music, but it adds something, because when you're trying to stand out from the crowd of so many freaking shows, you got to find something. And this show found a few things. It found a very seedy subject matter, found some kind of very gross things to talk about within that subject matter, superpower nonsense, which was cool. An interesting enough story for 20 episodes that I felt I was still intrigued by, though it does vary. I'm not going to say it's like the best show, but then you have some little weird trivia like the Duran Duran thing and all that other stuff. So you need stuff like that to hook people. And would I recommend Speedgrapher? I would say yes. Because I watched it 10 or 15 years ago the first time. I watched it 5 or 10 years ago, and I'll come back to it every few years every few years. Recently, I think it was like late last year, and I still enjoy it. It's not going to be a favorite. It's not going to be the best, but I think it's a breezy enough thing, seedy enough thing, and I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. If you are into the Black Lagoons, the darker than blacks, the stuff like that, maybe not, Psychopaths to an extent, but that's way more sci-fi. But again, the darker dystopian, the Yorgomon, that sort of thing, the darker, seedier crime thriller, crime drama stuff, then I think this has enough of a hook to it. Very surface level again, but still good in its own way. And you just want to dive down deep in the muck a little bit and want something like that. It passes the time really well, and I think it was enjoyable. But that will do for today. And apologies if my voice is a little at times. I'm still overcoming a cold. But let's see what our stuff is for the rest of the little while. We've got, let's see, Mega Man, Mega Month, Mega Man 2, Mega Man 3, Mega Man X3, Mega Man 0, and then Apothecary Diaries and Freerin, and then Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. So I'm good until June, and I'm gonna keep on going because I'm nearing the end of my 3rd year as a podcaster, and I'm still enjoying it. I'm going to eventually run out of things to talk about and might have to change tack, but I'm not running out of stuff anytime soon. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. It's a nice shorter episode. Talk about a nice anime. Not the greatest one, but sometimes you need something different. And that's all this was. But that'll do it for me, and I'll see you guys next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.